Hi, thanks so much for joining our webinar today. My name is Jessie Peterson. I'm the Director of Education here at SunRay Construction Solutions. SunRay secures $10 billion annually for GCs, subs, and suppliers. We are a national document service. Today's webinar is conducted by the wonderful Alex Ferri and Luke Tompkins, North Carolina's construction lien laws experts. Today's webinar topic is don't sign a release unless it says this one thing. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the fabulous and wonderful Alex Ferri and Luke Tompkins.
Thanks very much, Jessie. Thanks everybody for joining. Right. So if you've got any questions, you can use the chat box to the right. We'll go through them at the end. And if you could, please do not use any names or company names in the question box. That would be great. So here's just a general agenda of what we're going to go through. We'll talk about lien waiver basics, which is really the topic of this presentation. The difference between prospective lien waivers, partial lien waivers, and final lien waivers, how lien waivers impact your subrogation rights if you are a subcontractor or a supplier and you're looking to assert a subrogated lien. And then we'll go through just some final hot tips, the biggest takeaways from this presentation. So first, the lien waiver basics. I think everyone on this call probably knows what a lien waiver is, but it's exactly what it sounds like. It is a document that waives a subcontractor or GC's right to assert a lien on property. And there are obviously multiple players involved in liens, and they each have different interests in preserving or waiving lien rights. So if you're an owner, typically you're going to want your subs and suppliers to sign lien waivers. And if you are a GC or a sub or a supplier, you may not want to sign a lien waiver. You typically are going to want to preserve as much of your lien rights as you possibly can. North Carolina does not regulate the content or form of lien waivers. There is no statutory form that you have to use, and there's no like magic language you need to have in there, but it does need to be written, and we'll go through what the lien waiver should include, even if it's not required by statute, so that you're preserving all the rights that you can and only waiving what you need to. Lien waivers can be conditional or unconditional. A conditional lien waiver is a waiver of lien rights that's contingent on receipt of a forthcoming payment. So you're signing the lien waiver without being paid yet, but you get paid once you sign the lien waiver. And then an unconditional lien waiver is effective upon signing. So that happens when payment has already been made, or it's happening simultaneously with your signature of the lien waiver.
All right. Well, next up, we've got the discussion of the different types of lien waivers that there are, and there's really two types of lien waivers. There's lien waivers for progress payments throughout the course of a project, so progress payment lien waivers, and then there is a final lien waiver at the end of a project when all the work is finished and final payment is made. In North Carolina, one of the important rules is that any lien waiver that purports to require a waiver of claims for prospective work, in other words, work that has yet to occur, is invalid and unenforceable. There was a 2022 change to North Carolina's statute, specifically North Carolina General Statute, Chapter 22, B5, lays out that prospective lien waivers are invalid, unenforceable, and unlawful. So to the extent anyone tries to include that language in lien waivers, you can always let them know and point them to that statute that's impermissible. And even if you did sign something that claimed that you waived any claims to payment for future work, it would be invalid and unenforceable. So the only things that lien waivers can permissibly waive under North Carolina law is claims to work that has already occurred and for which payment has or is being received. That is the extent of progress lien waivers. And then at the end of the project, when all work is completed, you can waive, all lien rights because you're receiving that final payment, and in exchange for that, it is permissible to waive all claims. And so just something important to remember: prospective lien waivers not allowed, and that's about it on that topic.
So like Luke said, the two permissible types of lien waivers would be partial lien waivers and final lien waivers. And a partial lien waiver is signed when in receipt of progress payments, like Luke said. So when a party issues a partial lien waiver, that party must then file a claim of lien. If that party is going to file a claim of lien, they're limited to doing it for services or materials furnished after the date of that partial lien waiver. So it's important, if you are signing a partial lien waiver, that you pay attention to the through date. So for example, imagine that you did some amount of work and you finished that scope or that phase on Monday, and you billed for that finished work on Monday. And then it takes the GC some time to prepare the lien waiver and get you your payment. So on Friday of that week, let's say they're quick. Let's say on Friday you get this lien waiver, a partial lien waiver that the GC wants you to sign in exchange for this progress payment. So it's now been between Monday and Friday. You've continued working on the project. You want to make sure that the through date listed on the lien waiver is Monday. That's the work that you completed. That's the work you're getting paid for. So you only want to waive your lien rights up through that date, not through the date that you're signing the lien waiver, unless the date that you're signing the lien waiver is the date that you're waiving your lien rights through, which typically is not, because it's unusual to sign it on the same day that you've finished work and that you've billed work for. Make sure also that when you sign a lien waiver, the lien waiver is limited to what you're intending to waive. So this is, specifically important when you're signing a partial lien waiver. The work is still ongoing. This isn't the end of the project. You might still have outstanding claims. There might be change orders that haven't been executed, and you want to make sure that when you're signing the lien waiver, if you have any of those outstanding claims that you do not want to waive, that you identify them so that they're preserved and not subject to the interim lien waiver. And then again, the final lien waiver, you'll sign that when you have finished work, you've gotten your final payment, there's no work left to be done, billed or paid. Those are still permissible. That's not a prospective lien waiver because it's for work that's already finished. So that's really the only instance in North Carolina where it's permissible to have a lien waiver that waives any and all claims, because you're only able to do that once you have finished any and all work.
All right, so lien waivers effects on a subcontractor's subrogation rights. So first tier and lower subcontractors in asserting liens on property step into the general contractor's shoes, and therefore a subcontractor's right to enforce that subrogated lien on real property is waived if the contractor signs a lien waiver before the subcontractor perfects its lien on the real property. And that's why it's important for subcontractors to assert any lien rights as soon as it becomes clear that you haven't timely received payment for work completed, because you want to make sure you get those served on the owner before payments go to the contractor, before lien waivers are signed, etc. A partial lien waiver may also limit the amount of a subcontractor's claim to the amount remaining on the prime contract following the latest partial lien waiver, if that amount is less than the amount owed to the subcontractor. Importantly, a contractor's lien waiver does not affect the subcontractor's right to claim a lien on funds or a lien on real property due to wrongful payment. So in other words, if the subcontractor has asserted its lien on real property and the owner makes payments over that lien to the contractor, it would still have the rights to pursue that lien. But that'll be it on that.
And then we just wanted to go over a couple of the highlights, the biggest takeaway points. Lien waivers are pretty straightforward, and North Carolina is somewhat unique in that you can't prospectively waive lien claims, which is great for subcontractors and suppliers. So you're pretty protected in North Carolina as compared to some other states, which is great. But you do need to remember, most importantly, I think, with lien waivers is to make sure that you are reserving all of your claims that you're not intending to waive. Make sure you do that in writing, so that the lien waiver needs to be as clear as possible that you are waiving claims, but you are excluding from that waiver X, Y, and Z. If you need to attach exhibits to the lien waiver to make that abundantly clear, do that. The clearer you can make it, the better your chances are of being able to assert those claims in the future. And then the other thing is, again, just keep an eye out for contract clauses that say that you're prospectively waiving lien claims. I know a lot of people use form contracts that they haven't looked at in many, many years. If it's your contract that you're using that asks those signing the contract to prospectively waive their lien claims, and you haven't updated that contract in a couple of years, you might want to do that. That 2020 change, or before the 2020 change, contractors and subcontractors couldn't be required to waive lien rights prospectively as part of entering into a contract at all. Post 2020, that change made it so that owners can't use interim lien waivers for progress payments as a means of obtaining the release of lien rights or claims for payment of work not yet performed. So if you're using lien waivers from before 2022 and you're the one that is asking others to sign lien waivers, if you have a contract for prior to 2022, you might want to take a look at it, make sure that it's up to date with the current laws. And if you're being asked to sign those things, know that they're impermissible. And even if you do sign one, if you've accidentally signed one, they are void and unenforceable. Luke, any other hot tips you want to add?
No, I'll just highlight what Alex said, which is that with respect to lien waivers, the most important thing is if you do have any claim that you make sure to expressly exclude from any lien waiver that claim, submit that, make sure it's in writing. That's the thing that we, come across most often in practice is you just have to be very clear and obvious in signing any lien waivers when you're preserving claims.
Perfect. Any questions for us?
All right. Well, first of all, thank you both so much. That was a great webinar. I really do appreciate all the really wonderful information you were able to provide. We do have a question that has come through. The question, and I think you've kind of touched on this, but it's always nice to reiterate things. It says, can a GC require you to sign an unconditional final waiver and release in exchange for a check? Is that ever appropriate?
So if I'm understanding the question correctly, it sounds like this would be at the end of a project. It would be the final lien waiver, unconditional, meaning that payment has already been made. So if the owner has made final payment, or if you, have received final payment from whoever that may be, and you have no other claims, you are happy with how things have gone, the work is finished, you've billed everything out. At that point, you are able to sign a final unconditional lien waiver. Remember that unconditional means that you've already been paid. It's not conditioned on an upcoming payment. So if all those boxes have been checked, the owner or the GC, whoever's having you sign the lien waiver, they are permitted to have you sign at that point, and that is a valid lien waiver. But that's specific to those final lien waivers, and only because there's nothing prospective that you're waiving at that point because everything's already been finished.
Okay, and just for clarification, that would be in exchange for the check. So what if the check is a bad check or they end up having a chargeback on their credit card? Would that release their lien rights, or would they still be protected?
In that situation, that might be a different situation where you'd have to track that money back. Essentially, that would be like fraud, like a payment hadn't been made when you were represented that it had. And what you want to try to do if you're going to sign an unconditional lien waiver is make sure that not only have you received physical payment, but that it's cleared in your account. So that's a good point. It's always a good idea to wait if you're going to be signing an unconditional waiver, that the money has cleared and that you actually have been paid.
Correct. All right, wonderful. Thank you so much for that distinction and that clarification on that. That is the only question that I've seen come through at this point. If anyone does think of a question that wasn't addressed, please feel free to reach out and we'll be here to answer any questions for you. Can you go to the next slide for me, please? All right, so here are some of SunRay's resources to help you guys stay organized, know your deadlines, and secure your lien rights. So go ahead and scan that QR code to access these incredible resources. We have free project information sheets for you. They're great to utilize at the beginning of a project. They'll help you kind of get some of the information and the answers that you'll need throughout your project as to who is working upstream from you, if there's lenders, if there's any documentation for it. So use that project information sheet. There's all sorts of deadline calculators, state lien laws on our site. So please check that out so that way you can be informed and get yourself organized. All right, and then the next slide, if you don't mind, please. All right, if you don't mind, take a moment to review us on Google. We'd really appreciate it. It takes about a minute of your time, but we'd love to get the feedback back from you just so we can kind of see if there's any other topics you'd like to learn about or hear about. And it also just helps get the information out to other contractors and suppliers like yourselves. So please, if you don't mind, take that moment to give us that review. And then the next slide. All right, and with that, that's all we have for you guys today. Thank you so much to everybody who was able to attend. We hope to see you at our next webinar. Thank you again, Alex and Luke. You guys really are fantastic. I hope you all have a wonderful and sunny day. Thanks, everyone.